Honestly, like, I appreciate you for saying all of this. I don't feel like I did any work. I feel like I was just like, honestly, doing that thing that like light skinned people do where like they talk about themselves. Like, it was very like individualistic. But at the same time, Maya did thank me and said that I was being protective, and I was like, am I? Because to me, what I was getting from that, and this is just my analysis, that like I was like rephrasing things in a way that like people could understand because I was including my light skinned self, and I was implicating myself in erasure and harm. Like I was implicating myself, and and maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but I was implicating the harm I've done. I was trying to like let it be known like what I've like. It's like every conversation I've ever had or heard or was privileged to be in the space to hear felt like it was coming out of me. Felt like on some like mushroom shit, like all these combos and situations that are no longer in my life all somehow allowed me to be able to share this analysis um in a way that was like helpful. And that's, I guess that's how I'm choosing to see it, that like I've been listening, putting my ear towards folks who are going through the detriment of my privilege. And so I feel like just by listening to them, like I'm already getting access to so much. But then when I start to share what they're saying, I just am trying to be mindful of like bastardizing or colonizing the information. Because I have no desire to be like known. I'm very happy to be a hermit who like, sells plant medicine. That's like literally my desire. That's really all I'm worried about right now. But in my dreams, I'm a philosopher. In my dreams, I sit on a grassy knoll with folks that are my collaborators, with folks that are my family, my siblings, my sisters, and we talk and we relate and we eat and we share space. And these are things that I'm trying to move like they already exist. I'm trying to move like it's not a problem for me to talk to my sisters or my siblings. Like, it's not a problem for me to uplift something that's hurting me. I'm just trying to move in a way that I want to see us moving towards, so that folks get in alignment. Because, like, we're in the age of Aquarius. We're in the age of information. And the more information you have, the more you can be set free in ways. Think about how sometimes I might be sharing something and somebody might get set free by me. And there have been moments where people have felt radicalized by me, and I had to sit with how I could radicalize anybody while still not having everything I needed. And my horoscope said, if you can't understand something, it might not be time to learn it. And maybe that's the point. Maybe all that was for this moment where I could actually be offering some care to somebody. Like maybe all the listening and the asking questions and the community building has really culminated in a moment where I see myself as a protector, and or hold that I can protect, and what that looks like. Also holding that in my most recent video where I talk about how Black women need protection. I just had a moment where I was like, damn, like, man, like us trans people are really like the closest protectors to Black cis women. Like, it's not Black cis men. It just isn't. And so the transphobia that's being stoked by the right to get Black women to see trans people as non-allies and even competitors in spaces for Black cis man's love. Oh my God. I'm sorry. This conversation really just unlocked some shit for me. Like, this is like a whole thing. It's a really whole thing. And I'm so grateful to have you in my community, because without the praise from folk, like without like praise in a certain way, or even just like acknowledgement, not even praise, just even like just holding space, excuse me, for what's happening. Like, I don't want to over appraise what's happening here, because I know as a lighter skinned person, or rather I've heard as a lighter skinned person, I have more agency. And so I really don't want to be giving away the recipes without being aware of who cooked the shits. You know what I mean? Without centering who put it together. And that's just kind of where I'm coming from. So I reached out to Maya. Because, like, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm like, I don't even know if Maya was okay. Like, I don't even know if, yes, we've spoken since the comment section, but I don't know if they're okay with me talking to FD Signifier on their behalf. Like, yes, they liked the post, but you know what I mean? It's like, I know that their platforms coming together would raise his politics. I do not know that it would do anything for her. And so I reached out to her last night and was like, listen, if you want to stop this shit, if you don't want me to do anymore, just let me know. But I just want you to know, like, I'm here and I'm want to be accountable. But I also know that, like, I didn't even reach out to you before I made this post, and you could be going through something, and I'm over here sitting here smoking some weed, thinking everything's fine. So I didn't hear back from her, but I'm just hoping that, everything is okay with her. And, if you did have the space or the spoons to check in and just see how they're doing, because they could also really not want to talk to me because I could have harmed them in some way. Like, they could be analyzing my behavior in the comment section. Like, for any reason that they do not want to interact with me is fine with me, obviously. But I just, I don't know. I just want to be mindful of the fact that I have the privilege of being able to walk away from a situation that could be harmful to somebody way longer than I'll even hold on to it. Because for me as a light-skinned person, whenever I end up talking to other light-skinned people, I'm like, okay, yeah, we are terrible. That's true. That's being confirmed a lot. Oh, you're describing it just like this friend, who's a Taurus. They said that, like, there's, like, little pebbles that we get from people. And so, yeah, I feel like there's, like, giant gems, actually, that have actually allowed me to understand not just the violence I've caused, but also formulate an identity outside of the trauma of white supremacy. Like, white supremacy would have me call myself black, but I know that I am a mixed person, elevated in black spaces because of my privilege. Without listening to deep, dark-skinned black people, I could never name myself. I would still be calling myself black and defining myself based on fractions. I would still be out here acting as if I could ever center the work in myself with my lens of mixedness. And so, without the work of deep, dark skinned black people, especially femmes, I could not access worlds. 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 Like, it's beyond what anyone can ever see. I'm really trying not to cry because I really feel overwhelmed with emotion right now. But yeah, like, unfortunately, removing that gaze of whiteness, it can never be done alone. And that is the beauty of community and the tragedy of perhaps being online and being in online spaces where we don't have a control all the time over who we're with. In fact, I would say that most times in human history, we don't have control over who we're with and who gets to uplift us and inspire us. And sometimes we spend our life around people who could never do that thing that we need, that guidance that we are craving, that centering that literally feels like so incredibly important that you actually cannot even function without it. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm being actually quite literal in that without that labor, I could not exist in the way that I'm existing. Like, I could not. I could never. There are conversations, there are rooms, there are whole interactions, like, that don't exist without black women. Like, again, worlds. And I think that that is what's at stake, is like, there is another world. There is a world that we are contributing to that is a ball of fucking hell, and we get the privilege to walk away as if it's a fire alarm down the hall, down the street, like, so far away we can't touch it and engage. And that's just not fucking true. In fact, we hold a lot in this space. So much so that just the more I connect, the more I'm peripherally aware of like just how much trauma is actually unfolding in this space. And it's just like, it causes me to feel like nothing is enough. That's like perhaps leading into scarcity and this idea that like, you know, there's nothing outside of liberation. Like, we have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to get rest. Like, I know that. But there's just a part of me that feels like on some Hamilton, and like really not to invoke Hamilton at all, but just like on some like running out of time for real. Like running out of time genuinely. Like that feeling of like, if black cis men aren't getting it together and, you know, trans folks are being pit against black women, like there was a whole conversation I was having with somebody that had me see just how bastardized from protection black women are being socialized to be. Like, there are people literally trying to juxtapose black women and trans folk in order to incite even more violence against both parties. Black cis men watch, despite the fact that there's nothing wrong with queerness, there's nothing wrong with transness, there's nothing wrong with black women. Like, black cis men will sit back and watch. Black cis men will get to get a front row show with the white people and eat popcorn. And that's what I see with FD. It's like, bro, this is real life. Like, I reached out to Maya to check on them to see if they're okay. And honestly, I didn't get a response back. And I'm not saying that means that they're not okay. But how okay could they fucking be after that? Like, the dogpiling, like, I was just one person. Like, I wasn't a bunch of people. And even though I was going in, like, it felt futile because people were running back up. No, it's this shit just feels so fucking wild. And like, I like, something I had to sit with is like, there's times where I'd be like so worried that like someone's gonna get mad at me, and it's like, that is fucking my privilege reflecting back at me. Like, that's my privilege, just like, that's my privilege like coming to roost. Like, bitch, nobody's coming, nobody is going to fucking do anything to you. That is the truth. Like, the fear that I felt was actually projection of harm, but even more manifestations of anti-blackness. So it's like, there's a level to this that's so psychologically ingrained that me hitting what I'm hitting is meaning something way more fucked up for everyone who is literally being oppressed by me. Like, if Mio, I know you're probably like, bitch, I can't even help you. But I know that you're a gentle soul, and I know that you're a loving soul. So thank you for letting me unravel. Thank you for letting me like spiral. But it's like, I had a fucking identity crisis like after Clubhouse. Like, I had a meltdown. I like was like grappling with like all the ways that I had been so loud, so wrong, so not on point, so much harm, so much trauma. Like, and that's what some people are avoiding, like, just that sick, that fucking unraveling, and it keeps happening, like, it's not done. And so, I just want to be candid, like, I don't know. It's like, maybe it's making me, like, a better ally for white people, like, perhaps that is, like, literally at the end, or maybe not at the end, in this moment, I'm, like, actually seeing how white people perhaps sitting with or not with this, because it's like, honestly, like, me and my ex have been like engaging in some communication, and you know, my roommate is a white person who is has Sami ancestry. And I don't know how much you know about the Sami people, but they're basically a very colonized indigenous line, seemingly. I mean, no disrespect when I say this, but it just seems very Caucasian centering. And that's what I see. So, and upon talking to my roommate, they like had a meltdown because like they were realizing like, oh shit, like yes, they are colonized. I'm part of the colonization or the whiteness of the indigenous folk in this way, and it was kind of like, oh shit, like everyone has to have that. Everyone has to have this. Everyone has to have that moment where they like reconcile with like the privilege actually confronted by them in their own spirit and soul. Like that is something that can't nobody bring you to. Can't nobody engage with you around that. That is inner work. That is work that I was so privileged to have low-key done for me. Because like if I wasn't sitting in certain spaces, if I wasn't feeling empowered based on the benchmark that I was at, I would have never maybe opened my mouth in a certain way. I would have never forgot my privilege for a moment. But in that moment, somebody got my ass together in the best way. But that labor was not owed to me. Like that labor that they did to decenter me. Wow. All that's and there are people that have impacted me that I don't even know them anymore. Like, and it was my abandonment issues. It was my inner saboteur. I can name it on all types of, I can blame it on all types of things, but something that I have to hold is like, no matter how safe people think that I am to engage with, like, I'm always able to do some harm. I'm always able to be in the wrong, and I'm always able to be complicit in some kind of way in, decentering or appropriating. Like, there are so many ways that I can be moving that are actually quite toxic. And if I'm not confronting it, who will? Who's protecting black women from the light-skinned mixed people? Who doing that? Like, I just have to be mindful of like how much privilege I have and where I need to stand. I really must be in alignment